Well, good evening, everybody. This is Bucknuts.com, Steve Hellwagon, and we are here. I'm in Indianapolis covering the Ohio State players at the NFL Scouting Combine, and we've already interviewed now 9 of the Ohio State players of the 11 who are here. 2 more to be interviewed tomorrow with Carnell Tate, the wide receiver, and C.J. Donaldson, the running back. And news just broke moments ago that Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles both timed at 4.47 in the 40. They were tied for the best in the linebacker group and certainly both cementing their position as first round picks. So I wanted to get that out of the way, kind of breaking news before we kind of get to the bigger story, at least in terms of this podcast or web show of the day, which we wanted to focus on Ohio State men's basketball. We'll take just a moment and mention Ohio State women's basketball. They had a great chance to get a top 10 win last night and dropped an 88-86 decision at home to Michigan in overtime. The Buckeyes had to rally to force the overtime. Jelani Cambridge made 3 free throws in the final second to force the overtime. And then in the overtime, they had a sizable lead, but were unable to hold on. And Michigan stole the game in Columbus. And the Buckeyes have lost a few here down the stretch, but still considered a top 25 team going into the postseason. The Big Ten tournament will be next week here in Indianapolis. So now we got the preliminaries out of the way, and we want to talk about what happened last night when Ohio State went to Iowa and lost the game 74-57. Another tough defeat for the Buckeyes. And this is a game that was strange in that Ohio State had an early 14-2 lead in this game. They came out and were firing on all cylinders. You had John Mobley Jr. hit 2 early threes. Amari Bynum hit 2 early threes. And Iowa called timeout about 5 minutes into the start of this game. And their first-year coach, Ben McCollum, who's kind of their Jim Tressel, was a 4-time Division II national champion at Northeast Missouri State, then had a 31-win season in his first year at the Division I ranks last year at Drake. They won the Missouri Valley Conference and won an NCAA tournament game over Missouri. He comes to Iowa, brings 4 of his starters with him, including the superstar Bennett Sturts, who's just an incredible player. And he showed it again last night, 22 points, 8 of 11 from the field, 3 of 6 behind the arc. Ohio State basically gave him no resistance at all, it felt like. So at any rate, he brings those starters with him from Drake to Iowa, and they show immediately that they are made for prime time. So they put a number on Ohio State, and this is an Iowa team that had lost 3 of its last 4 games, had looked really bad in a loss to Wisconsin, a team that Ohio State scored 87 points on, and walloped pretty good the week before. So you go into this game, and McCollum calls this timeout 5 minutes into the game, and the entire tenor of the game changed at that very moment. They outscored Ohio State 35-9 over the final 15 minutes of the half. And as a part of that, they scored 16 consecutive points at one point and 10 consecutive points at another. Ohio State was unable to get the stops that it needed, obviously, to make this happen. And I think there were a lot of things that contributed to what we saw. Last night, just trying to get stopped from, coughing. But you had Amari Bynum coming back from an illness. He didn't seem like he was quite 100%. Maybe he's a little bit weakened from that. Devin Royal, same thing, coming back from supposedly a weakness or an illness. Judy Mobley had not played 3 games because of his finger. Of course, he comes out and hits 2 threes to start the game, but then he had some issues after that. And, of course, they missed Christoph Tilley. Now you get those guys back, and your 7-foot quasi-rim protector is gone. And what did that mean? Well, it meant that Iowa went on one straight line drive after another, and had 44 points in the paint to 18 for Ohio State. And they count points in the paint. If you get fouled and you make a free throw, that free throw counts as a point in the paint because it was derived from a play in the paint. And that happened several times. And they also had steals for breakaway dunks with nobody around on a few occasions as well. I'm going to say, and I know the comments are going to blow up if anybody's watching this live. They're going to blow up and say Diebler's got to go. Get rid of everybody. I don't even know who you keep out of this group. And I wanted to throw in on Bruce Thornton. He'd averaged 29 points in his last 3 games, and it basically had the weight of the world on his back. Ohio State was only 1-2 in those 3 games. But with the losses to Virginia and Michigan State and the win over Wisconsin. But, we figured out last night they're not robots. They are human beings, and they are going to struggle at times. And obviously they struggled mightily last night. And it was in a situation where they absolutely could not afford to do that, because one, it was a quad 1 win opportunity. They're now 1-10 in quad 1 wins, and the one they got, it's virtual technicality. A Northwestern team that is 12-16 overall just moved into the top 75 somehow in the net rankings with their road win over Indiana. So you look at it and you're just kind of like, that really shouldn't be a quad 1 win, but it does count as a quad 1 win, unfortunately. Fortunately for Ohio State, 1-10 in quad 1 wins. They haven't beaten a good team yet in a situation where it'd be considered a quad 1 win. Now they beat Wisconsin. Wisconsin's record's 19-9. They beat UCLA. They're 19-9 at home. At home, they can beat these teams. They beat USC, that's 18-10 at home. So you get the idea that they do have a few wins over some teams that have a few wins, but obviously they have removed all margin of victory. To feel at least safe about being in the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2012, a 3-year drought, they, in my mind, need to beat Purdue, the number 8th ranked team in the country, 22-5 on Sunday, 1:30 p.m. on the world's greatest television network, CBS, nationally at 1:30 p.m. on Sunday. Then they also need to go on the road and beat Penn State, who is clear down in the basement in the Big Ten, 11-17, 2-15 in the Big Ten, and come back home and beat Indiana, who is 17-11 and 8-9 in Big Ten play. So they are almost certainly going to be the 9 seed or below, which means they will open Big Ten play on Wednesday at the tournament and play one of the worst teams in the conference to start the tournament, and then probably play Iowa in the next game on Thursday. And if that happens, the matchup's got to be a little bit better than it was the first time, or they can probably forget about going to the NCAA. So they have now got their work cut out for them. I know the comments, I haven't gotten back to that page just yet. I know the comments are going to be, no way this team's going to the NCAA. No way they beat Purdue. No way they do this. No way they do that. Did we give up when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? No, did not give up when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. And for anybody who's under the age of 55, that's from a movie in 1976. So a guy was making a point, I suppose. I don't know, but you think about it, and it was just a game that got away from them. And what was disconcerting to me was, okay, you get out to this fast lead. Iowa basically resets the game with their timeout 5 minutes into the game. And their coach most certainly challenged his players' manhood. And when they came out of the timeout, they were up in Ohio State defensively. At the beginning of the game, Ohio State was moving the ball side to side, up and down, getting great shots. That never happened, again, the rest of the game. I mean, maybe sporadically once every 8 possessions, something like that happened. What you had after that was one pass and somebody jacking up a 3. You can go back and watch it and figure out who we're talking about, but it was ugly. And so this is the team they have. They have to ride with it. As the game wore on, Iowa was the team that was much more connected. You would watch the game at one end, and Iowa is moving the ball, moving the ball, moving the ball, dunk, moving the ball, three-pointer, moving the ball, oop, backdoor layup. Iowa was the team that was much more connected than Ohio State as the game wore on. And I don't want to say Ohio State quit, but some of the possessions on offense were so bad, so many unforced turnovers, throwing the ball out of bounds, just stupid mistakes, bad shots, stupid mistakes. Again, they got outscored 44-18 in the paint, and without Tilly in there to guard the rim, Iowa just took the ball to the basket. Ivan Jagovin, he tried. He played 23 minutes, 5 points, 3 rebounds. He won't take a shot. He's point blank. He's got a smaller guy on him, and he won't shoot it. Chapman, he came off the bench, had 16 minutes, 3 points. Cups, 10 minutes, no shots, no points. Puff Johnson, 11 minutes, 3 shots, no points. Colin White, 12 minutes, no shots, no points. And you get the picture. It's just not enough lead in the pencil here for Ohio State to expect to go on the road and play like that and expect to be any closer than the final score, 74-57. Ohio State was up 14-2 to start the game. And at one point, in the second half, with 6 minutes to go, they trailed by 23. So they're up by 14-2, 5 minutes into the game. So the next 15 minutes were played in that half and 14 minutes were played in the other. In that intervening 29 minutes, they were outscored by 35 points. That's a 35-point swing in a 29-minute period. You can't play any worse than that. The last 15 minutes of the first half was the worst 15-minute stretch of Ohio State offensive basketball, just 9 points. They were, I will call it up here, 5 of 7 when they got started. And in the first half, they ended up 7 of 22. So they only made 2 field goals in the final 15 minutes and were 2 of 15 in the last 15 minutes. 2 of 15 in the last 15 minutes from the field, and 5 of 7 to start. They went 9.5 minutes without a field goal or a point, I believe, during one of those stretches, the 16-0 run, I believe, by Iowa. So, you're talking about at one end, you can't get a good shot. Iowa is completely taking you out of your offense. You have no flow. Bruce Thornton would give the ball up and couldn't get the ball back. And at one end, you had a team that was connected, moving the ball, getting dunks and layups and shots. And at the other end, you had dribble, here, you dribble it for a little while, dribble, and no connectivity to produce great shots as they had in the first 5 minutes. So explain that however you will. Diebler, I think he waited way too long to call a timeout. I think the first 14 points of that 16-0 run had been scored before he finally called a timeout. They go from up 14-2. If I can find it. Where is timeout on here? Where's the timeout function? But it was well into this run. I think they made 3 consecutive 3-pointers before he finally called a timeout. And let's see here. Yeah, 3-pointer by Cale Combs at 11:07. Then Sturtz made a jumper in the lane to tie it 15-15. 3-pointer by Bennett Sturtz to make it 18-15, giving them the lead at 9:33. Then a 3-pointer by Cooper Koch at 8:47 to make it a 6-point game. Then both teams went like 2 minutes and didn't. Yeah, finally there at 8:43 called a timeout, and at that point, the run was 19-1. You can't let the run get to 19-1 before you call your first timeout. And I know you're hoping to get to that TV timeout. And you're hoping for this and you're hoping for that. Sometimes there's no hope. You got to call timeout and stop that. You got to call timeout before it gets 19-1. And I know you're dealing with a second-year head coach, learning on the job, et cetera, but that's a total mistake. Iowa was riding the enthusiasm of their fans. One of the best places to play in the Big Ten, Carver Hawkeye Arena. Just checking out what they listed last night. They've not been selling out lately, and they only had 10,368. So it shouldn't have been maybe like it normally is there. But to see what they did to Ohio State, those people had to be on cloud nine, because that's a big win for them. Ohio State just outside the top 30 in net. That's a potential quad one for the win game for them if Ohio State somehow ends up in the top 30. I don't even want to look at the Ken Palm in the net today. I can't bring myself to do it. So my guess is a road loss probably isn't going to hurt them that much. But, you got to feel, I guess, for what I thought about this whole thing, just ridiculous the way it unfolded. And obviously Ohio State just in a bad way. Guys just not operating at full potential. And without Tilly, again, you're playing left-handed. And how many times did you just look, somebody give up a layup and look at the bench like, I can't guard these people. And they had a career game from one of their guys off the bench. He's a 6'10 forward, Alvaro Figueroas. He had 20 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Just an amazing game for that guy. He's only averaging like 5 points a game. And as we said, Sturts, who's probably an all Big Ten player, 22 points for him. I have one guy today tell me he's their best guard or shooting guard, rather a point. I call him a shooting guard, but he referred to him as a point guard, probably back to BJ Armstrong 40 years ago. That's back in my day, but I don't know about that comparison. I want to bring up just something on Purdue before we get out of here. Just throw in here. Joe Bax says, well said. Thank you, Joe Bax. Appreciate the support. And Scott says, looks like they will be NIT bound if they can end the season 500 or better. Yeah, they're okay on that. They're 17-11, which is not where they should be, certainly, but that's where they are, 17-11. They've given away so many games when you think about Pittsburgh, Nebraska, Illinois, North Carolina. There's 4 right off the top, had chances against Michigan State and a few others as well. So this one goes down in the category of, got knocked out of the box, lost to Michigan by 21 in 12, and now lost to Iowa by 17. Purdue is 22-5. They are 12-4 in the Big Ten. They had a stretch from January the 20th to January 27th where they had their own really, really bad 8-day span. They lost at home to Illinois, 88-82. They lost on the road to their rival, Indiana, 72-67. And they lost a nut cruncher at UCLA, 69-67. 3 losses by a combined 13 points in an 8-day period. And since then, Fletcher Loyer has come out of his funk, their shooting guard, and he led them 3 straight games, 29, 18, 18. They've won at Maryland, at home over Oregon, at number 7 Nebraska, and they just beat this Iowa team that Ohio State lost to by 17. They beat them by 21. Beat them by 21 in Iowa City. So that'll tell you what you're dealing with. They played Michigan at home. Number one, Michigan lost 91-80. No disgrace there. Michigan is a machine. And then played Indiana at home and beat them by 29, 93-64. Oh, and here's a name from the past that's coming out. Trey Kaufman-Renn didn't do anything for Purdue in the first half. He was coming back from injury, really didn't get much done the first half of the season. He's had games of 23, 27, and 20 here in the last 7 games for them. So he's back playing good. Fletcher Lawyer's back playing good. And, oh, yeah, the National Player of the Year, the All-American Braden Smith, is their point guard. And these guys don't lose very often. So if Ohio State did beat this team in Columbus 2 years ago in Jake Diebler's first game, and Diebler better be hoping that he can string some of that magic together, because it is not looking good. Not looking good right now. I don't want to speculate that he would be out of this job if they don't make the NCAA tournament. I think that Ohio State should and probably will be committed to him for one more season, but unless they spend proper money to field a proper 10-man rotation instead of the maybe 3 or 4-man rotation they have now, we've seen too many games go by, folks. You know, I like everybody on this team as a person. I like everybody on the staff as a person. They are all great people. There's no hint of discord or, you know, somebody's a bad actor. There's none of that. We've had that at Ohio State years ago. Don't have that now. What I see, though, are people who are not equipped to win high-level games in the Big Ten Conference against national top 20 opponents. People who are not equipped to go on the road and win a nut cruncher, like we've seen teams from Ohio State do that with great players in the past. They have Bruce Thornton, who's on his way to being the career scoring leader at Ohio State, and as of today will not play in an NCAA tournament unless they stand on their head somehow, some way, get a win over Purdue and maybe 3 more after that. That it's probably not going to happen. So, you know, they have backed themselves. They have painted themselves into a corner, and now we will see how they are going to react on Sunday at 1:30. But, you know, Diebler, a good person. He's one of us. He didn't play at Ohio State, but he's coached at Ohio State for probably a decade now, between being the video coordinator and the assistant coach and now the head coach. And I just think if there's anybody who, you know, embodies what they want to do, it's him. And you want to see this turn out well for him. You want to see him win big. But if they can't fund this any better than to have 4 Big Ten players on a roster, then that's the problem. And some of it is who he's picking and investing his salary cap dollars in, certainly. But it sounds like some of it is, you know, losing bidding wars on top players. So that'll tell you where your basketball program is in a nutshell. In my mind, you can change the coach, but if you don't spend more money, you know, we're going to be right back here a year from now trying to scrimp out a win at Rutgers to get in the NCAA tournament or something stupid. So, you know, it isn't going to change. So at any rate, I've prattled on now for about 24 minutes about everything I saw. I wanted to give 24 hours grief on that defeat. You know, condolences, you know, bereavement, whatever, you know, they consolate or whatever it is, condolences, whatever you do after the funeral. I wanted to let that one die and bury. And Coach Diebler in his radio remarks said, we've got to move on from this and, you know, do the cut-ups of, you know, what wasn't acceptable, which is probably about 2-hour-long movie. But at any rate, got to move on to Purdue and figure out a way to be in that game with 3 minutes to go to where you can steal it. And that's kind of where they're at right now. They need their frontline guys to play like frontline guys, or you're going to have another result just like this one on Sunday. So that's it. I posted all the questions, both of them that we got today. And, you know, thank you all for reading, participating, and following. Everybody here with us at Bucknuts.com. We're going to continue our coverage of the Combine here in Indianapolis tomorrow. And we will be at the Schottenstein Center on Sunday, 1:30 p.m. for the game against Purdue. That's it from here. And everybody have a great night.